Did CBS just accidentally confirm that Michael Dorn was going to be inside of the Star Trek Picard show? There's trouble brewing inside of the Discovery writers' room, apparently. And we go ahead and hit our Trek trivia question of the week. Let's pour it up! Okay, so the first story that we're going to be covering today is the troubling situation that apparently occurred inside of the Star Trek Discovery writers' room. This story has been kind of making the rounds a little bit between also the naysayer YouTubers, but also mainstream media as well, because it has been viewed as a potential freedom of speech issue. So what really is going on? Well, the individual in question, his name is Walter Mosley, who was working as a writer for Star Trek Discovery, and I guess during a story that he was telling inside of the writer's room, he said a racially connected word. I'm not going to repeat it here, but I'm sure you guys can go check it out online or read the headlines here. But he said a racially connected word that somebody found a bit offensive and went to CBS HR and made a complaint against him. CBS HR has a zero tolerance policy for using any kind of racial slang terms or anything like that, apparently. So they went and contacted Mr. Mosley and said, hey, I don't know if you're aware of this policy, but we do have a policy. You can't say those words inside of the office setting. They did also say, apparently, that you could write the word in a script, but you couldn't speak it aloud. Walter Mosley, who identifies himself as an African-American Jewish man and as a writer, he felt very offended by this. He felt like his freedom of speech was being hindered by saying exactly, quote, that he felt like the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution guaranteed him the right to freedom of speech and the pursuit of happiness. And he essentially resigned from his position as a writer on Star Trek Discovery. Now, the issue that people are having with this is that it's coming across as, because he said this word in a context of a story of someone using it derogatorily towards him, that he shouldn't have been judged for that. But there's a couple of different ways to kind of look at this. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to separate my feelings on this just a little bit. But so over here is my feelings on using these kinds of racial terms, and then over here is what CBS did from a business standpoint. So from a business standpoint, an employee said a word that somebody else found offensive. That employee went to their corporate HR and made an anonymous complaint saying that they had an issue with that. The HR investigated the claim, contacted the person in question. The person in question confirmed it, and they said, hey, you're not allowed to say those words here on CBS's, productions and all their different things. You got to go ahead and take those words elsewhere. You can't say those here. That guy got upset because he wasn't allowed to say those words and that he was being judged for saying them in that context and quit his job. That's over here. That, to me, makes fine sense from a corporate perspective. That doesn't seem to be violating anyone's freedom of speech. It's a corporation. They're allowed to have the rules that they want to. A lot of people conflate the First Amendment with the corporations not being able to censor them, but that's not true. You go ahead and try to find me any job on any face of the planet here in the United States, I should say, I don't know about face of the planet, but in the United States, where you can just say whatever you want no matter what because it's a First Amendment right. That is not the case. You can't just say whatever you want. It's more geared towards the government censoring you, not a private corporation. So that's over here. Now over here that I'm holding is my feelings about these words, and I am of the belief that either all of them are okay or none of them are okay. I don't feel like we should be starting to cut and piecemeal who's allowed to say what, when, in what context, and well, how black are you? Are you allowed to say that word? Or what kind of correlation do you have to this race or this society that you're able to say these different types of words? I think either all of them should be pulled back, all of those racial terms should be pulled back and not said at all, or all of them should be allowed to be said by everyone, and we should try to diffuse the actual threat and menace and malice behind certain terms that we still kind of put and attach to these words. Even I think there was an episode of TOS where I think fake Abraham Lincoln referred to Uhura in some kind of way, and he was like, I apologize for that. And she was like, no, we don't assign such issues with words and things like that anymore. Like that's a Star Trek thing. Maybe we should be trying to focus on allowing these things to be more open and not be so selective. So that's my personal feelings. And then there's the feelings that how it happened as a corporation. I don't think CBS did anything wrong. I definitely don't think his First Amendment rights were violated because, again, a company doesn't necessarily have to directly connect back to the First Amendment. Every company is going to be running a little bit different and things like that. So it's not exactly cut and dry as black and white as, well, that's my First Amendment right, and so I get to say whatever it is that I want. Well, no, you can't go into you want to say that, you go into a supermarket right now and say, I'm going to shoot this place up. Good luck with that, because they're going to arrest your ass and throw your ass into jail, because that's just not what people are allowed to say anymore. Does that violate your First Amendment rights? Maybe, but unfortunately, these are things that we're dealing with right now as a society. These things, and I'm not saying that to be over dramatic, I'm saying that to showcase that these things are not black and white or cut and dry, simple answers. They're very complex answers that require a lot of deep, nuanced thought, which we have exactly none of on the internet, so I hope that people don't get too spun up about this. It is unfortunate that he said these words and somebody got offended, and that he got offended about their offense, and that it led to him having to quit his job. Who knows what kind of impact he could have had on the Star Trek franchise. It's unfortunate that it played out this way, but that is the way that it played out, and that's my feelings on it, and hopefully you guys don't flame me to hell for saying that. All right, so the next story that we're going to talk about is something a little bit more exciting. Let's get off that heavy, serious drama stuff. And this was pointed out to me by a fan of the channel named Alex over on Twitter, who shared this image with me. And what we see here is a signed autograph photo from Michael Dorn and what appears to be a gift that was given out to some of the crew members who worked on Star Trek Picard. And if you see here, there seems to be some kind of connection between these signatures. Now, that immediately starts sending up red flags. That looks almost identical to Michael Dorn's signature. So that to me means, is he there? What's going on here? So with a little bit more digging there, we found the original Instagram post where somebody clearly states that there was signed by the crew and cast of the Picard show, along with several TNG alums that were present on hand, I guess, for the end or the finale or the end of the shoot or whatever it was for Star Trek Picard. So does this mean that Michael Dorn, aka Worf, is confirmed to be in Star Trek Picard? Well, it's not the craziest thing in the world to have actors visit sets, especially actors that know each other for decades and decades, which these cast members have. Michael Dorn obviously could have easily visited the set just to pop in to see what was going on. We do know from a report from a few weeks ago that he has been talking a little bit with Alex Kurtzman and the I guess the global franchise group to try to possibly see about getting a Worf show spun up, maybe there'd be a full show or a short track or something like that. So we do know he's kind of there doing something. But was he just so happened to be on hand so that he could sign that piece of, I want to say, memorabilia, we'll call it? And is it possible that that was the case? It was just simply, innocent or innocuous? Or did they just accidentally spoil the fact that Worf is inside of the show? I feel like Worf is inside the show. I think he's going to have a bit of a cameo. I don't think that Alex Kurtzman and company spoiled all of their nostalgia cards that they were going to play for Star Trek Picard. Now, Patrick Stewart has come out and said that they're not doing a full-blown TNG reunion on the show, and that's fine, but even if they were, they wouldn't tell us. And also, Alex Kurtzman has gone to the J.J. Abrams school of tricking people and trying to surprise them with things. So is it possible that they've been lying to us so that they can surprise us in the moment during the episode? Yeah, absolutely. Do I think that they maybe kept some of those nostalgia cards close to the vest so that they can then reveal them later on as the show is being, released? Yes, absolutely. So, do I think that he's in the show? Yeah, I do. I think Worf isn't going to be in the show, which I'm the most nervous about because I don't know what he's going to look like. Is he going to look Discovery? Is he going to look regular Worf? Is he going to look something the same, merged, or what? I don't know, but I do think that he's going to be in the show. All right, let's go ahead and hit the rumor rundown. So I don't really have any Star Trek rumors for you guys this week, which is fantastic news. The only thing I will plug here is my awesome Star Trek anniversary video that I worked really hard on with 21 other YouTubers. This isn't a rumor, this is fact. So go ahead and check that out if you haven't gone to go over there and looked at it. It's actually a really nice little love letter, hopefully, to Star Trek, and I hope that you all enjoy it. All right, let's go ahead and hit the Trek Trivia question of the week. All right, so a lot of you struggled with this question. I was surprised to see how many people struggled with this question. The question, for those of you who don't know, was who was the first person to receive the Vulcan neck pinch by Spock? Now, I did tell you guys it was going to be Spock, and it was going to be based off of the release dates of the franchise, not timeline-wise or filming-wise. It was the release date of the specific episodes in the franchise. Who was the first person to get it? And that was Sulu from the TOS episode, The Naked Time.
I'd like you to teach me that sometime.
Take D'Artagnan here to sickbay.
Now, a lot of people thought that it was Evil Kirk. Now, technically, according to what we know from production notes, the Evil Kirk episode was filmed before The Naked Time, but it aired after that one. So I kind of tried to trick you a little bit there. It was like a trick question somewhat, but you know what? I got, some people got the answer right, and I'm really proud of those who did, so great job there. Thank you for everyone for, I guess participating, even though most people kind of got confused with what I was trying to say there. So I will try to make this one less confusing. So this week's trivia question is, how many different cats were used to represent Data's cat Spot? Now this includes the television show and the movie Star Trek Generations, not Star Trek Nemesis, because that was a deleted scene. I don't count that. I don't count any other beta canon stuff like that. Just the the TNG show and Star Trek Generations. How many cats were used to represent Data's cat Spot? I look forward to hearing your guys' guesses down below, and hopefully you guys get this one right. I'm not trying to trick you too much this time, so hopefully you guys figure out what I'm talking about, and you get those answers down below. Good luck. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the comment of the week. This week's comment comes from user Glenn Waldrop, and it says, Frakes commented about how TNG was, quote, family-oriented, and it held them back. I miss those days. I watched it with my parents growing up, and I don't bother censoring Discovery. My kids just don't watch it with me. Well, Glenn, I feel like that is a fair point to say, that Discovery isn't really geared towards a child audience or really family-friendly. Do I think that the fact that TNG was family-oriented did hold back TNG in some regards? Yeah, I do. I do think that maybe they wanted to touch on more serious subjects and more serious, plot lines and get a little bit more into the drama between the characters, but both Gene Roddenberry's standards and the fact that it was a more family-oriented show did hold them back in some regards, which is fine because they made it work in other ways, which is great, But is Discovery really like that? No, it's on the whole geared towards more of a older teenage, young adult into adult type audience. And I think that they did that intentionally to try to pull back in the core Trek audience who was at that specific kind of age group that they were looking for, that age demographic. And now that they have made some money and made some popularity with Star Trek again, regardless of its being positive or negative popularity, it's, popularity, attention, if you want to call it, not necessarily popularity, some positive, negative attention there. Now that they brought that back to Star Trek, I think now that they're starting to reintroduce all these other ideas of a family-oriented Star Trek show. So, Glenn, I hope that you stay positive and maybe realize that Discovery may not necessarily be for families, but we are getting at least 2 animated shows that will be directly geared towards a younger audience, especially one for much younger kids. And then, of course, we're going to get Section 31, which will probably be even edgier than Discovery, and who knows what Picard's going to be like in terms of its adult content or maturity level for watching. So, Glenn, you bring up good points, and I do share some of those concerns there, but I think that we have a lot of Star Trek coming down for all wide ranges of demographics and audiences. So, stay tuned! All right, that wraps up today's Earl Grey Pour-Up. Not too many stories, but 2 really large ones. So I want to go ahead and pose these questions to you. What do you think is going on in the writer's room? Do you think it was unfair for CBS to even approach the situation with Mr. Walter Mosley and even address what he had said? Or do you think something else should have went down? I'm curious to hear what you guys think about that. And do you think that Michael Dorn is inside of the Picard show? Do you think that that signature means that they accidentally leaked it? Or do you think he just happened to be on hand and signed that little gift there for some of the cast and crew? I'm curious to hear what all of you guys and gals think about that. Throw up those comments down below. Let's go ahead and get the conversation started. Live long and prosper, my Trekkies!